My name is Julian Carroll. We're in Mudgegonga in northeast Victoria. We're on the family farm here, which is a commercial beef enterprise, about 700 acres. So the project we've implemented as part of our emissions reduction action plan is to improve our feeding systems. So what we've done is we've taken our existing stock containment areas and made a more efficient way of feeding cattle in them. Stock containment areas like we've got here are designed to get cattle out of your paddocks when there's no need for them to be in there because there's no feed in there. In a tough season, at the beginning of autumn or in a drought, you don't want your cattle degrading already stressed pastures. So the way we use them is we've got our cattle in here until they're ready to eat grass straight out of the paddock. This particular feeding system makes sure that we can replicate our experiences of the good years, which is early growth in young cattle.
The feeding system that Julian's undertaken here really makes his operation very efficient and ready to implement feed additives that will help reduce his emissions when they become more available and more adoptable into agricultural systems.
We can see in our emissions footprint that enteric emissions are the biggest aspect that we can work on and to achieve some improvements. For us, it's about maximising productivity, making sure we hit our target markets as early as possible or reduce wastage by having better reproductive outcomes. In your mind, sometimes a project is bigger than it really is, and this was actually really straightforward to do. Really all we needed to do was get a good gravel base down, drop in the feed troughs, build the cattle cable front and upgrade our feeding wagon, and cattle look really good for it. 9 out of 10 years we'll just be feeding our homemade silage. So we've gone for a machine that is very specifically designed just to chop up a bale of silage and elevate that into the feed bunks. The obvious other consideration would have been a mixing wagon, but that would have cost us about an extra hour a day in preparing that ration. The beauty of using concrete feed bunks too is that when we do have one of those years where we have to import concentrates like grains or pellets, we've got infrastructure ready to go. And also we're feed additive ready. If it turns out that down the track we have a practical solution for putting supplements in to reduce enteric emissions. We've been really impressed at how quickly the cattle adapted to eating out of a feed bunk. Within 2 minutes, before it got to the end of the feed out line, they were all heads through the wire and munching away. The feed use efficiency is fantastic. The cattle are eating absolutely everything we feed them. In good years, we can get a much faster turn off of our steers. And what we're trying to do with our feeding infrastructure is to use management and control in those poorer times to make sure we still achieve great growth rates. So if our feeder steer turn off can vary up to a month or even 6 weeks, depending on seasonal conditions, for every 2 weeks we bring forward our turn off of a B-double load of steers, we drop 13 tonnes of CO2e emissions out of our system. So 26 tonnes of reduced emissions if we bring forward our date by a month. Every farm's different in the way they're set up and their propensity to feed cattle, but this is certainly a really great way to feed cattle with minimal hours a day and maximum feed efficiency.
Authorised by Victorian Government, 1 Treasury Place, Melbourne.